And welcome back to redheart.com as well as the Crochet Crowd. I'm your host Mikey, and in today's tutorial we're going to work on the Happy Hearts Afghan. And I bet you're looking at the screen and said, well, that does not look like a Happy Hearts Afghan. You would expect it to be like reds, pinks, purples, and etc. Remember that creativity is really subject to you, that this idea for doing this particular Afghan could be in any colors that you choose. So let me take you through a little bit of this pattern for you, and then I'm going to get you started, because once you understand this pattern you're going to realize how quick and fabulous this project really is. So to review the pattern today, you need a total of 80 of these squares. Now the color changing is subjective to you. If you're following the pattern, then you're just going to be able to change the colors as per the pattern. You can change anything that you want. You can use a different color of yarn, and in this tutorial today I'm going to show you how to change color effectively so that you do not see the start and stopping points of your color changing. And this square is slightly different from all of the squares that I filmed in the past. The starting and stopping of each one of the rounds is at a different space, and that's something that I've learned today. This is also classified as a solid granny square. So within this tutorial I'm going to show you how to do one of these. I'll show you how to change the color as I mentioned, and then you can go through the pattern and just follow the color combinations that they're suggesting if you would like to get a really close version of what is in the pattern. Also, what we have today is that we have hearts, and there is only 20 hearts. So you're looking at the Afghan and you're thinking to yourself, wow, there's a lot of hearts. There's only 20 of these things. And so I'm going to give you some tips when we get to the heart area to be able to really speed your way through these. And because there's only 20, there's really not too many that you need to do in order to really slow you down when making this project. So let's without further ado, I'm going to start you off with the solid granny square next, and this is quite fabulous and fun. So to start off with today, I'm using Red Heart with Love, and you can substitute with Red Heart Super Saver as per the pattern or equivalent yarn. We're also having a size H or 5.0 millimeter crochet hook today, and now let's begin with a slip knot. Remember that the slip knot never counts as one. So as per the instructions, it says chain 5 and then join with the slip stitch to form a ring. So remember, this never counts as one, the one that we start with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we want to go into the very first chain just like so. Grab the yarn and pull it through, and you have a ring just like so. So you notice I just naturally put my tail around the outside of the ring. We want to trap that into position, and we're going to do that right next. So let's move along officially to round number 1. So round number 1 is really simple. So we're going to start off with, and it says to chain 3, 2 double crochets into the ring, and blah 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 blah. So let me simplify all of those instructions for you and just crochet along with me right now. So we're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. If you're familiar with granny squares and starting it, it's very similar. So here we go, and we are going to double crochet. So we're going to grab the yarn and going into the ring and double crochet 2 times. And see how the stragglers there? I'm just wrapping it around so that it captures around the center of that ring so that you can safely cut that afterwards. So we have a total now what appears to be 3. Remember, when you chain 3, that counts as a double crochet, so you officially have 3 there. So let's chain 2. We're turning a corner at this point and going into the center of the ring again. See how I just naturally turned it? I'm going around in a square. So I'm going to double crochet 3 more times into the center of that ring again. So I'm ready to turn another corner. So chain 2 and turn the work, coming back into the ring again for 3 more double crochets. Ready to turn a corner once again, chain 2, and this is the final side. It's not the final corner, and 3 double crochets back in to the center of the ring just like so. Whoops. And once you get that in, then what you need to do is chain 2, 1 and 2, and we want to join it to the top of the chain 3, and we go in, pull through and through, and that is classified as a join. So right here is the center. You've been trapping it all along. You can just safely grab your scissors at this point, and trim that first one out, and therefore you'll never see the beginning or of your project, just like so. So let's move along officially now to round number 2. So we're going to start off now, and we are going to chain up 3. And usually in this particular concept, I always tell you to come and start within the corner. with this particular project you're starting right on top of the first post. So let's begin. So 1, 2 and 3, so chain 3, and see how this is sitting on top of the, like that is sitting on top of this. They're lining to each other, so that helps you really be able to determine your stitches. So if you were to match this up, you have 2 more left right now. So you're going to put a double crochet into each stitch going over the top of the other 2. See? So if you look at it from that perspective, it's easy to remember. Now we're in our first corner, and to do our first corner we are going to double crochet twice right into that chain 2 gap space, and then chain 2 because we're turning, and then coming back into that same space for 2 more double crochets. So here is the biggest tip of doing these. Now when you do all of this corner stuff, sometimes it traps that first stitch so that you cannot see it very clearly. Remember what I just said to you over here is that this stitch and here are lined up with each other. Well, the same thing's happening here. So if you jump to what appears to be here, you're actually jumping over the middle one. So we have to make sure that when you're double crocheting that you may need just to move these stitches, just pull them backward a little bit and just go into the top of that first stitch. So that's where an error would be for most newbie crocheters, and then double crochet over the top of the other 2. So it's just a matter of being able to identify your stitch work. So we're ready now for the next corner. So all corners in this particular project will be 2 double crochet, chain 2 because we're turning, and 2 double crochet. So we're now we have the same issue that we had before, is that we have to make sure that each one of these 3 now get one on top, and just pull this back and just make sure that first one gets that double crochet like it should. And every double crochet on top of that. Ready for the next corner. So 2 double crochet, kind of drop my stitch there, and we're turning, so chain 2 and then back into that same corner. And now we're ready for the next side. And remember, see, this one's more clear. So it all depends on how tight your stitch work is. If you can see those stitches, once you know that you have to go there, like it just, your eyes automatically go there, and so does your hook. So it's not something you need to worry about. So this is your final corner, and this is what's different from all my rest of my tutorials, is usually that I finish off on a corner. So what we have here at this point is that this is the final corner and there's nothing there. So we have to then finalize that corner, and this stitch work here is sitting over top. So if you can identify the corners of when you're finishing, so the corners are always 2 double crochet, chain 2 and 2 double crochets in. And so now that the final corner is done, see how the stitches are matching here on top of each other? You just have to, in the top of the chain 3, slip stitch just like so. So this is the biggest tip that I have for you right now, is that if you're not changing color, what's gonna happen is that you're gonna chain up 3 at this point and then just carry on. So this line matches this one, so then you have 4 left now before you get to the corner. So you're gonna do the exact same thing going all the way around. When you come all the way around, the corner is now further away from the spot, so you're gonna turn your corner and then you have 2 stitches more to do before slip stitching off to finalize the round. So this would be how you would continue if you were doing the solid, and there's only 4 rounds. So what I'm gonna ask you to do at this point, we're gonna change color, and I want to back off, and I want to just get to the point where I'm gonna slip stitch to the top like so. So I'm gonna pull through and through, and just grabbing your scissors, I'm gonna just trim a generous tail, and you're thinking to yourself, that tail's pretty generous. So I want you to grab the yarn and wrap it around the hook and pull through that particular one and just pull it tight. This just locked it on top of itself, but you're still thinking to yourself, that's still a long tail to hide. And the best way to hide your yarn strands is to grab a darning needle, just slip it on, and it doesn't take more than a minute, and you're just gonna come in and you're just gonna weave it through some of the stitches that you've just come from. And you want to make sure you're grabbing it into some of the fibers that are there, because it'll lock it into position, and you're just coming back in one direction and then just going into a separate area, just like so, in the other direction, and then just finally, and see how I'm not really reefing on it, I'm just making it snug but without over tightening, and then I come back one more time. So you go back and forth 3 times, just like so. And so this yarn strand will never fall out at this point. So you can cut it nice and close to the project, and voila. So therefore it would be finishing. So let's move on. I'm going to show you how to add the next color, because we have 4 rounds in this and 2 more are left, and let's start the next color right now. I'm about to start the next color, and I have this thing within myself. So you may have your own things, but this is mine. I don't like to stop and start exactly where I've stopped and started before. In the next line I like to move somewhere else, and it just makes it easier to join and just easier to follow along. So I'm just gonna rotate it like a steering wheel, and I'm gonna come back, and where I want to join it is on the top of the first one, going in that direction. So I want to slip into my hook into the stitch, and you notice that there's no ties on this. I just want to loop it around my hook and leave the straggler down on top, like so. So to begin I want to chain 3. So 1, 2 and 3, and essentially every double crochet here is gonna get the one on top of it. And every time you go into the line, make sure that straggler's down on top and getting stuck in between, and it's a way of trapping it into position permanently. So I'm just gonna double crochet myself, just like you already know, across this side. So to identify the final stitch is that sometimes people think that there's a stitch right here at the end of this. Remember that the stitch is almost kind of on this side of your, when you're going in this direction, the stitch is kind of on the one side. Do you see that? So in actual fact I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So technically I should have 7 that are sitting directly on top of each other. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm ready for the first corner. So the corners, remember what they are, and see how I'm still trapping that in position. They are 2 double crochet, chain 2 and 2 double crochet. Once I'm beyond this first corner, I'm gonna let that straggler just fall in behind, and I'll trim it off camera and I get it out of the way at that point. It's been trapped in all of this distance, so I'm not worried about it falling out at this point. So here we still have 7 on this side, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So essentially we just have to match it. And this is the side that we fastened on with. So if your fasten off was not very clean looking, this is a way to redeem yourself, just to make sure and look for the stitches that make sense and for you as you go across. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm just counting for the sake of myself, 5, 6 and 7. So if you know that you have 7 in there and you got 7 on top, you know you're good. And turn the next corner is a 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. So now you already know what you know. So we have 7 double crochets here. So just again continue to go all the way around, then just match the double crochets together, and then of course on the corners you do your 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochet. When we come back I'll be at the end of this round and I'll show you how to finalize it off. So I've now come all the way back around, and in the final corner there's nothing there. So in the final corner, just like how I showed you in the blue section, is that we do 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet in, and then of course you know that this stitch matches the one on top. The corner was the only thing left, so you're just gonna have to join it at this point. And so we just have one more round to go, and then the square is called complete, and you just have to make 80 of these things as you continue. To begin round number 4, you just have to match it again. So we're gonna immediately chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and you notice here if you pull it apart, this here equals that. So in actual fact you have 2 double crochets after the corner. So if you can just keep that in mind when we get all the way around, then it just makes sense. So each stitch here is going to get 1 double crochet on top of again. So it's really very easy. Solids are very easy to do. You can do an unlimited size of solids, so even though we're stopping at this round, your squares can be much bigger if you want to, including a full-size Afghan, without actually having multiple squares within your project. Once you get to the corner here, we're now going to turn the corner again, like 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet again in, and continue all the way around. When we come back, we'll meet you back on the other side where we'll finish off this square together, and then we're going to move along in another portion of this tutorial today. I'm almost done this round, and I still have a corner and a couple more double crochets to do before I can get here. So what we have to do in the final corner is to double crochet twice again in, and we are turning, so chain 2 and double crochet again in twice, and then we have 2 more stitches. You can clearly see that here, and that will finalize off. So it's double crochet into each, and we just have to join it to the top of the beginning chain 3. And just like I showed you how to fasten off before, I want you to use that same technique and fasten this off, and then when we come back I'm going to show you how to do the heart next, and then I'll show you how to do the sewing procedures after that. To start this little heart today, it's actually really deceptive on how it comes together. You would think to yourself, this is all one project. In actual fact, yeah, it's one project, but it's actually done in 3 different sections. So when the project starts, we're going to be starting around here, making a chain and working our way down to the point and fastening off. Then we start the next bump right here, and then we fasten off, and then we come over and do the final bump. So in actual fact, this heart is consisting of 3 different sections coming together in order to form the shape. So without further ado, let's get started on it right now. So to begin, I want you to leave a tail about yay long. Okay, this is about 8 inches, 10 inches, and what I want you to do then is create the slip knot from that. That tail we want to trap into position afterward. So let's begin with a slip knot, and as per the instructions it says to chain 11. Remember that this never counts as 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So there is the first chain right there. So this is actually the top section of the heart, and the bumps will then sit on top of this, and the point is down over here somewhere. To begin the point row number 1, all we need to do is single crochet second from the hook. So we just have 1 and 2 going into the second one for a single crochet, and we just single crochet ourselves across the chain. So this will give you a total count by the time you're done of 10 single crochets, and this is the top of the heart, and what we're going to be doing at this point is that we are actually working downward, even though it doesn't appear to be at this point. So just single crochet across the top of this chain, and we'll meet you right back in just a moment. So once you're at the end, you're just going to turn your work, and we are going to start up. So to start up now, we have to chain 1 and then single crochet. So you have to make sure you get this first one that is right underneath. So there's 1. So what we have in the instructions says single crochet in each stitch to the last 2 single crochets, and then single crochet 2 together on the very last 2. So this is going to be starting to come down on the point. So just single crochet yourself across, and when you see the final 2 stitches, you know you're on the other side, and you know you're going to have to bring these together in order to start creating the inward point going in the downward when it's appearing on your Afghan. So we're just single crocheting across and looking for the 2 remaining stitches. So at this point there's only 2 stitches left. This loopy thing here, that is because I've chained 1. Okay, so that's not a stitch, so you may have that, so I'm going to leave that here in this tutorial. It's important that you identify your stitch work when you're going into these things. So the final 2 we are going to single crochet together. So we're just gonna, let me restart. We're just gonna go into the stitch, grab the yarn, pull through, go into the final stitch, grab the yarn, pull through. You have 3 loops on your hook, pull through all 3. And now you've just made 2 into 1. So let's move along to rows number 3 to 7, and 3 to 7 is just really simple. So just on a piece of paper, just mark 3 to 7 and check it off as you go. So how to do 3 to 7 is that we are just going to chain 1, and remember to get that first one in right underneath it, and then we just go all the way until the final 2 stitches where we're gonna do the same thing of 2 together. So you just have to look and identify your stitches and know which one is your last. And once you identify the last one, you count 1 more over, because then that's the last 2, and then you bring them together just like so. So I have 2 stitches left on here. We're just gonna go in, pull through, go into the final, pull through, and then pull through both of them just like that. So that concludes row number 3. Continue 4, 5, 6, and 7 on your own, and you will end up so that there will only be 4 stitches left in the middle of the heart on the way down. So I just finished up row number 7 just seconds after I finished the other part of this tutorial, and basically now I want to go on to row number 8, and it says to chain 1 and then single crochet 2 together twice. So essentially what we're gonna be having now is that we're coming into the first one and the second, and we're putting it together just like you already know, and then the final 2 are coming together. So there was a total of 4 left on that. So that just concludes that row, and now we just have to start the next one, and this is number 9. So we chain up 1 first, and then we just do 2 single crochets together because there's only 2 stitches left, going in, pulling through, going in, pull through, and then pull through, and that is the very base of your heart. So when you turn it upside down or upside right, this is the bottom point. So just like your fastening off techniques, what we want to do is just really do a nice job of hiding this in. So what I want you to do is just wrap the yarn around and pull that through. I've already just cut it off camera without telling you, and I'm just gonna use a darning needle and hide that in. This is a really dominant area on a project, so you're really gonna want to take your time and just hide in these yarn strings. So what I would do here, just put a darning needle in and just hide it under some stitches in one direction, going up the one side like this, and go back and forth 3 times. So 1, just make sure you pull it nice, coming back in for 2, and going back in for 3. And what happens is that this will never come out on you because you've trapped it in going in 3 different ways like so. And so now you can safely cut this right to where it pops out, and you will never be able to see where that is. And then we're ready now to move on and start doing the bumps at the top of the heart now. So we're now ready to move on to bump row number 1. We're doing 1 bump and then we're doing the second bump. Now how do I know which side I'm starting on? See this straggler over here? This is the side that I want. So I'm gonna start off so that the straggler is on this side, and I'm gonna work in that direction just like so. So grabbing this yarn here, I just want to just loop it. I don't want to create any knots on this. And now let's grab our crochet hook, and now we're ready. So what we want to do is that we want to come into the remaining loops that are in the top. You will see that there's only 1 loop. So we're just gonna come into the remaining loop like so, and grab the new yarn and just pull it through. There's no knots on that yarn. I just want to lay it down on the top, and I want to grab this other one that's over here, and I want to use it at the same time as well. So they're just both going to be trapped on. So we're just going to chain 1 first, coming into the same loop and single crochet, and now we're going to single crochet into the next 4 loops. Make sure that these are trapping into position just like so. So trapping meaning getting underneath like that. So I got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that'll take you to the halfway spot on this particular heart. And now just let these stragglers go, and now we're going to turn our project and move on to row number 2. So row number 2 is chain 1 single crochet into each. So we're just going to chain 1 single crochet into each. There will be a total of 5. So this is 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now we're going to turn the work one last time, and it says single crochet 2 together, and then single crochet, and then single crochet 2 together. So you notice I did not chain 1 first because the heart is going to come around the bump. So we're just going to immediately come into the first one without chaining first and grab the yarn. Going into the next one, pull through, grab the yarn, and pull through 2 together. The middle one is by itself, so it's single crochet, and then the final 2 are 2 together. Like this. And using the same techniques I've already shown you, I want you to fasten off at this point. I won't show you the sewing process, but I want you just to cut your yarn, wrap the yarn here, and pull through this loop so it traps it on, and I want you to take your darning needle and hide in that, and when we come back we'll start the other bump next. Okay, so section number 1 and 2 are now done, and now it's time to finalize the final bump on the top of the heart. So essentially what we need to do is just we need to keep the bump on this side because we're gonna crochet that way. So I want you to come into the first available loop that's left, and I want you to grab your new yarn again and just loop it onto your hook and pull through. And I want you to take that straggler and the remaining 2 stragglers and just leave it down on top of the line like you already had been. So we're just going to chain 1 to start. Coming into the same loop, we do a single crochet, and now we're just gonna single crochet in the remaining loops that are left, like so. And there will be a total of 5 of these by the time you get to the end. So 5 single crochets going all the way across. And now that you're at the end, leave that stragglers out on the end. We can safely trim that because in actual fact you started way over here, and that can be trimmed. It's not going to fall out. So we're going to turn our work and we'll move up to row number 2. In row number 2 we are just chaining 1 and single crocheting into the top of every stitch, into the stitch is going across. And remember there is a total of 5. So that was 5. So let's turn our work again, and let's do the top of the heart. This is the very last part, so we're going to not chain 1, but we're immediately going to start to do 2 single crochets together. The middle stitch is a single crochet, and then the final 2 are together, like so. And so now your heart is done. So we're just gonna finalize off your work. I've already trimmed my yarn, pulled through, and now off camera I will seal the deal, and I can safely trim these off as well. So that would be how you would complete a heart. So in the next part of this tutorial we are going to be able to put these together on top of your granny squares. So in the next part of this tutorial I'm going to show you how to fix the heart on top of your granny square. You should know that in the Happy Hearts pattern that the granny squares that we attach to are a solid color. They're not like this. So that just helps you be able to understand it. So I'm going to show you how to be able to fix this on so that you have a fabulous project regardless if the Afghan is turned upside down or not. So let's begin that next. So my first recommendation, and it only takes just 2 seconds, I would get some pins and just pin the heart on top of the granny square. Just like so. And I would pin it in 2 locations. And this would help you so that when you're attaching it, that your heart does not slide out of position as you're doing it. So there you have it, just like so. So what I want you to do is that I want you to grab the same color string that the heart exists on, and I want you to create a slip knot on this one side. Just like this. Oops, I grabbed my crochet hook. And I want you to grab a sewing needle and put that yarn in. So in the last part of this segment I just said, you know, you don't want your work to be visible on the other side, so that if it turns over you don't want to see your stitch work on this side, do you? So what we want to do is that we want to come into the heart, and it doesn't really matter where you start. I'm gonna start at the bottom because it probably makes sense. And what I want to do is that I want to come in from the underside first. Just like so. And the reason for that is that I want this slip knot to be on the underside of the project. And so I want to loop it. So in actual fact it just came in. And so this straggler then I want to leave so that I can just put my sewing needle and just drag it through. So the trick to doing these appliques to any project, just gonna get that out of the way, is that when you go into the strings don't go all the way through so that you see it on the other side. I want you to just grab a couple strands so that when you turn it around here you do not see that needle, do you? And come up back through the heart and pull it through. And just jumping across, because you are using the same color, it's not very visible, and so then when you go to the next part again, you just want to grab a few strings on the top layer so that you do not see it at the bottom, and then coming back into the top of the heart. And again back into the heart, and then again top layers on the other side, and then back up. So continue to do that all the way around on this, and at this point if I turn this over, see, you don't even see the pink. So therefore if somebody turns over your Afghan on the couch, you know, a kid messes with it, you know, messes up your decor, you don't need to worry about your work being hanging out on the other side and it being noticeable, just in case you don't catch it on time if you have surprise company. So continue that and I'll meet you back up in just a moment. When you get to the end, you just want to create a little knot on top of itself, only in the pink area, not in the behind, just like so. So it can tighten on top of it, like so. And then all you just need to do is just feed it through the pink area only for about an inch, going up. And again, if you need to turn it over to verify, then do so, and just pull it through like that. And now it's permanently in, and now you can safely trim it where it's popping out, because it has to travel all that way back in order to follow, which it won't. And then what you just need to do is just take your needle and just partially slide it into, or you can leave a longer tail if you wish, if you're doing this, is that you can just feed it through again, and there's nothing on there. So what I want to do, because I didn't leave a long enough tail, is that I want to just feed this little section in to the needle like that. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to pull it through. And what that does is that's the starting point, and so then that's trapped into position, and then I can safely trim that out as well. It's almost kind of crude in many ways, but really quite fun and fabulous. And so it is very three-dimensional, so the heart's sitting on top, and when I turn it over, voila, you don't see any stitch marking on the back, but it's on here pretty safe and sound. So in the next part of this tutorial we're going to move along, and I'm going to show you how to attach the squares together in a really fun and fabulous way. So now it's time to attach these together. Very quick and simple, and there is a technique of doing it that you have a gorgeous finish on it. Now in your pattern you will notice that all of the blocks are a different color on the final outside. You're going to want to choose the yarn color that complements all of it, that makes it a lot of sense. So if this was all this kind of colors, I'd want to choose one of these colors that I've used in order to join it, so that it's really quite fabulous. So let's begin, and it's just going to start off with a slip knot on the one side, the darning needle on the other, and I want to come in to the first one here. Now the trick is that I want to come into the absolute corner first. Okay, and when I come into a corner like so, there's 2 stitches, I only want to come into one. So go into the one that's in the back, and I'm going to pull this partially through. Okay, I don't want to pull it all the way through. And then on the same level, on the same one on this side, is that I want to come into the back. Okay, so in actual fact I'm going to go down on this one into the back. So the color is going to be very obvious here. And before I pull everything together, is that I want to slip my needle through the slip knot, and now pull it all snug like so. And I want to leave this straggler here on top. So what I'm going to be doing now is that I'm going to go into the back loops of the next one on one side, the back loops on the other side, and I want to leave this straggler down on top, and this straggler is going to get caught in between my work. So now again back to the blue side here, back loop, and then I go to the next stitch available, put that stragglers down on top. Okay, back and back, and because these squares are identical size, the stitch work will line up all the way down as you're going across. So I would want to trap that straggler in more, just to make sure it doesn't pop out. And now I've run out of straggler. So it's very easy to tell at this point. So back to back like this. So you're thinking to yourself, if you've never done this before, is that you would think that you would want to go into the full stitches. When you go into the full stitches, because you see how the stitches are turned up naturally like that, it creates like a window pane effect when you attach them together like that, if you've attached it the full stitches. But if you only attach it to the back loops, because they're the ones that are pretty well the most exterior facing loops here, is that you end up with a completely flat afghan. Okay, now when you get to the bottom here, we still have the corner chains to work with. So do the corner, and also continue to do the same thing with getting into the back loops only. And you can do both chains there. And so what's gonna happen now is that on your table you now have your next group that is down. So you just continue the same string going across, and when you see how it's laying flat? It's perfect. And on the other side you end up with a gorgeous join that is not very obvious. So it's a way of being able to join everything together. Now if this color was more complementary to each other, you'd probably barely notice it within this project. So this would be how you would attach your squares together. Well, there you have it. This is your Happy Hearts Afghan tutorial. On behalf of redheart.com as well as the Crochet Crowd, it has been my pleasure to serve you up a little bit of Red Heart love today. Until next time, I'm Mikey on behalf of redheart.com as well as the Crochet Crowd, and we'll see ya.